Hey everyone, Brian Beeler from Storage Review. Another video in our series of live on site with DataON down here in Anaheim. Long trip for us, but it's been great exposure to not just the DataON nodes and what they're doing with their new integrated solutions, but we're also highlighting the partners that they're involved with. Microsoft being one, of course, and Intel certainly is prominently displayed here. These nodes, all Intel storage, all fundamental parts to the success that DataON is having in getting these new Ice Lake servers out to market, and then the integrated solution. So really great so far. I've got a very special guest from Intel to join us to talk a little bit more about what Intel's doing from a partnership standpoint, what the future looks like from fabrication, all sorts of other good stuff. Let me bring in our good friend Gina Merjanian. Gina, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Brian. Good to be here.
So, yeah, thanks. So you are General Manager, U.S. Inside Sales. What does that mean?
Yeah, happy to translate. So my team is responsible for covering about 1,000 customers in the U.S. channel, and that is customers we sell into or design into, as well as customers that we sell with, as well as customers that we sell through. So a variety of customers and partners that we're responsible for supporting across the U.S. channel.
See, this is great because normally we get, we'll do a video or a podcast with some nerd like David Toohey or somebody that wants to get into the weeds on all this flash and NAND and manufacturing stuff. So, but this is really cool because you're a practical person because you've got to sell these solutions. You've got to enable your 1,000 partners to go to market with these solutions. So at the end of the day, you've got to be behind building and getting to market the things that people want to buy. So this is very good. This is very practical.
Well, I'm a geek at heart. My background is technical, and I was an engineer in my previous life. And at the end of the day, you gotta know the technology before you can sell it. But happy to be here to speak to kind of the business side of things and what we're doing to enabling partners.
Yeah, so I mean, DataON has got to be a great partner for you because just sitting in front of me is the Intel chassis, the Ice Lake CPUs. We could put PMEM in here. We've got Optane, we've got TLC, we've got 16 terabyte QLC guy in here too. They're really taking advantage of all the technology Intel's got, which has got to be exciting for you. All your partnerships are special, just like our children, right? But like to see someone take the whole list of products and bring them to market, it's got to be pretty neat.
It really is. So I will say, I mean, DataON is a special customer near and dear to my heart. They're a hybrid cloud compute strategy, makes them extremely unique. We've been partners for the last 30 years now. Mm-hmm. We love that top to bottom, they are sold on Intel technology. They've been first to market with new technology with us, Ice Lake or third generation Xeon included. They're first to have a certification on Ice Lake platform, on new Azure Stack from a solution catalog standpoint, and they leverage every program that we have under the sun. So they're an example of a rabbit, I would say, that we like to go to market with, and they get to sit on our board of advisors. So they're part of a very selective group of customers that get to advise Intel on what we need to do better in terms of execution and give feedback into our product divisions so they can make our products better. So I couldn't think of a better partner to speak to you about today.
Well, Howard likes to talk, so putting him on any board of anything is dangerous. The conversations, though, like tell me about that, because I think that's interesting that you're not just taking the products and saying, hey, channel partners, here's the next drive, go sell. You tell me about the give and take that goes on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So our board of advisors compromises of 20 to 30 customers, and they're in different groups. So we have a client group, a data center group, an enthusiast group, and so on and so forth. And the idea of bringing like-minded customers to the table. And they're not there to just represent their customer. So Howard is not there just wearing a DataON badge, but he's wearing an advisor badge of how we're going to make the data center business better for the channel, for our partners and end customers. And with that, we meet on a regular basis. We used to have face-to-faces, now they're virtual face-to-faces to bring these advisor circles together with the idea of talking about technology, talking about strategy. Where is the world going from a technology standpoint, and what do we Intel need to do, and how do we best partner with these best of the best, right, to bring about these technologies to market?
Yeah, that's. I think that makes a lot of sense. And actually, we're sitting in on a similar thing that Howard's doing with their customers next week. where it's a round table, more or less, of having that back and forth communication. And as you say, you'd rather do it at an event or in cities around the world as you travel. And so we'll get back to that, I'm sure. But the feedback from the end user or your customers and their customers is phenomenal. And we hear the same thing from Microsoft and talking about Azure Stack HCI. I was asking Cosmos, how do you decide? Because there's so many things you could go do. How do you decide how to prioritize it? And it's competitive landscape, it's customers, it's all these things rolled up, but the customer piece is one that I know is important to you, but I don't know if the rest of the world really understands how much effort you put into that to tailor your products going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important. To me, customers are the eyes and ears of Intel in the market. So certainly we cannot reach an end customer if we don't bring our customers and partners along. So I think one thing that I have to say, we can do a better job of listening, right? We're taking this journey of how to take all that feedback in and kind of condensing it down to something that's actionable. So we're getting better, and our goal is to be very proactive in getting that feedback early enough that it actually influences our product roadmap. I don't think we're right there yet, but that's our goal.
No, that's solid. So let's talk about other goals. Intel's got relatively new leadership, and you're talking about, I think everyone's heard about investment plans. Like at a high level, what's going on that you want to communicate about Intel's strategy that's important here?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I would say earlier this year, we hired a new CEO, Pat Gelsinger, and he's been on a torrid pace to really transform the company's execution. And earlier in the year, we unveiled a very bold strategy, really. And it's how do we take the company to a new era of innovation and technology leadership? And it really, that framework or model was called IDM 2.0. That is really our strategy of driving manufacturing, innovation, product leadership across the board. And in July, we hosted something called an Intel Accelerated event, and we really built upon that vision. During that event, Pat Gelsinger, as well as Dr. Ann Callahar, she's head of our technology and development, the two of them shared the most detailed roadmap update, Ryan, that we've provided in the history of the company. And among the highlights, I would say there's three things that I was really excited about. One, they unveiled our new node naming. Two, they shared our strong process roadmap through 2025. And three, they introduced the world to Intel 7. And I can take a couple of minutes to kind of walk through those three.
Yeah.
So I would say one is new node naming. In the past, we used to have our own nanometers. The world didn't deal with the same nanometers. Nanometers were not created equal. And for every customer that we've had to talk to, we had to explain to them how our 10 is their 7. And the announcements that were made really were meant to provide our partners and customers with clarity, transparency, and insight into our future product and technology. So the first thing that we did is we renamed our process nodes to better align with the tech industry. So previously we used nanometers. That really no longer representing an actual distance or a feature in the silicon. So instead it became more of a marketing tool. And like I said, I think it created more confusion. So by renaming to remove that distance reference, we're really aligning with the nomenclature of the industry. So our new naming is going to be a very consistent framework. So it's going to be Intel 10, 7, 5, and so on. And the goal is really to serve as a consistent framework, a more accurate view of the process node that our customers can leverage and be able to take advantage of. So that's
on that note, it's so hard because we're spec sheet guys. We see the new drives come in. We want to know what's the spec IOPS per whatever workload. But at the end of the day, the spec sheet's somewhat irrelevant because when you put these things to work, it's can it run my workloads? I want to run 500 VDI seats and some SQL Server and some in-house apps and inventory management, whatever. And the cores and the threads and the throughput of a CPU, for instance, doesn't necessarily translate directly to that. So it makes sense, but you also have to kind of pivot the way you communicate capabilities to get a little bit beyond the spec sheet.
100%. I would say at the end of the day, our customers don't buy nanometers. They buy performance, whatever that means to them on their workload. power and cost, TCO.
Okay.
But the goal of all that spec sheet stuff is to bring that about, right? The idea of the new a new node is supposed to bring about better performance and more effective and efficient performance, right? Performance for what? So you're spot on. At the end of the day, it's one matrix, right, that we use to measure performance, but that's not all our customers are depending on when they buy their technology. That's right.
Okay. All right, so I interrupted you. You were on a flow on
great question. Great question. I would say the second
your other things,
I'm excited about is just an annual cadence of products, right? Our customers has come to expect from us, and we're going to continue to deliver. So we're moving faster and more efficient than ever before to really deliver these high-performing products that are leveraging now manufacturing, packaging, and design. And our goal is really to use the goodness of the products that we've built before, like 10 nanometer, which is now in high production. And we're going to see an annual cadence between now and 2025, where Intel is going to introduce a new era of semiconductors that we're calling the Angstrom era. So we're introducing, we've introduced 10, we're going to introduce 7 nanometer coming up here at the end of the year, which is going to provide 10 to 15% better performance generation over generation. And we're going to be shipping client in the end of this year with the Alder Lake family, and next year we're going to be shipping data center products with Sapphire Rapids.
Do you enjoy, I get the sense that you enjoy being able to talk about these things a little earlier than maybe historically Intel has, because I can feel your excitement come through. That's got to be fun, right? Because you can not just tell customers under NDA, you can tell the world, this is what we're doing and what's coming very soon.
100%. I think we tended to be more conservative on sharing that, and Pat is, opening up the doors and saying we're going to be transparent. We're going to tell the world where we're going, and we're going to constantly update them with transparency on where we're trending, where we're going to be, and we're going to continue to deliver for them. So yeah, I'm super excited to be sharing. We've never talked, what's going to happen next year or the 2 years from now, let alone in 2025. So yes, super excited about that.
Yeah, well, there's the process improvements in shrinking dies and all that sort of thing, but there's also all sorts of new tech that's going to be rolled in with those, right? Because we've got these Gen 4 SSDs now, which are phenomenal, but Gen 5 is like right around the corner, coming soon, and that's got all sorts of other new capabilities and throughput, not just for storage, but I/O on the back end and NICs and all sorts of other stuff. It's kind of an exciting time, I think, for server designers, because Intel with these OEM systems, or Dell or anybody else, this next generation is going to give them a lot of flexibility to look at things like SSD form factors. What can we do with Gen 5? What can we do with interconnect? This now feels like a pretty hot time.
100%, and I think that's the beauty of technology. Things are moving so fast, and there's a lot to take advantage of, and I think we're learning pretty quickly. Process is extremely important. Packaging, extremely important. So we've been talking kind of about 6 pillars of technology that we need to excel on, and we went from just talking about CPUs, what are the gigahertz, and now we're talking about software, we're talking about security, we're talking about manufacturing and design, and so on and so forth. So yes, 100% agree with you.
Yeah, and so tell us more about Intel investments, so that you're investing more in fabs, or manufacturing. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so we've announced about $100 billion investments. When Pat came and shared with the board, we've seen a phenomena of a lot of the manufacturing across the world really moving to Asia, and his goal is to just balance the supply chain, especially with COVID, right? So our goal is really to help US and EMEA to have a lot of manufacturing done in-house or in the geo. So with that, we've announced, I think, 2 fabs so far in Arizona and 1 in Ireland. And we'll continue to build those capabilities to make sure that we're not just manufacturing Intel products, but we're helping to manufacture products for the world. Yet another advancement for Intel. We used to be very closed door with our secret sauce from a manufacturing standpoint, and now we're saying we're going to help the world manufacture in Intel fabs.
Well, we're all feeling that, right? Everyone knows about the generalized chip shortage that gets referenced for everything from Ford F-150s to I've had an AC unit on order since July that they can't manufacture because they don't have the little chips for the control board or whatever. but there's a lot of supply challenge and a lot of moving stuff from Asia to the US or whatever, right? I mean, so having a little more infrastructure to be able to create these things is pretty critical. I mean, that must be, and in Europe as well, that must be another thing to be really pumped up about, is it takes a while to online that capability, but you're certainly running in the right direction and getting ready to be able to help customers in the years ahead have easier access to supply.
Yeah, we think it's extremely important for Intel and for the world, and we're starting, we're breaking ground now, but in addition to those fabs that are being built real time, we're working with the Biden administration in the U.S. as an example to figure out where Intel can help with some of the current chip shortages. So
that's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So let's come back to some of the things that you're working with DataON in their office. So I feel somewhat compelled to speak to their capabilities. HCI continues to just roll like gangbusters, and for a period of time it felt like there may be some level of saturation, but now we're seeing all these new workloads at edge IoT, machine learning, analytics, AI. Intel's got some great solutions there from the silicon to enable those technologies. Microsoft's doing some great work on facial recognition software and cameras that integrate with these solutions. It's a pretty exciting time to be a part of the growth in the HCI market. From an Intel perspective, just what are you seeing there in terms of these nodes getting out into the wild and being part of these new workloads?
Yeah, I would say, man, that Microsoft Azure Stack HCI in general, just high performance, resilience, scalability, and now it's become a must-have, right, in infrastructure. So, our goal is to deliver for companies like DataON to be able to bring those solutions to market. And I mean, we continue to hear incredible testimonies from customers, right, about how, after offloading traditional exchanges, bringing really, a solution from DataON and, 10x, I apologize, and increasing application performance, right? Extremely noticeable to management, employees. So the idea of it being highly scalable has been just a huge plus. And you're all about outcomes, right? And so when you talk about what these technologies enable, I mean, it's funny because I was talking with Cosmos on performance in this cluster. So we've got a 3-node cluster, Ice Lake, with 5 of the 5510s in each node. And we were just kind of messing around, getting a feel for the performance of what a small 3-node cluster would do. And we're seeing like 4 million IOPS random read out of this thing. And he said, wow, we only got 3 million in last gen architecture. You guys found a million free IOPS. And it's not that there's anything hugely different. I mean, obviously Ice Lake's better in all sorts of improvements, so I'm not taking that away, but it's not like there was a whole lot else done, right? I mean, the progression in the hardware was the next big step, and 33% more performance just on that alone, swapping out the hardware. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and to me, that's kind of the beauty of Ice Lake. Really the architecture was built from the ground up with that balance of built-in acceleration and advanced security capabilities, and it's designed through generations of innovations that we've built on. But one of the things that I would say Intel has really taken to heart is working through the world's software leaders and solution providers across the world and making sure that we're optimizing all of these different workloads so you can take advantage of hardware accelerations to offload the system. So that's something that definitely Ice Lake or 3rd generation Xeon really shines through.
No, and we've heard that too before, and that's one of the things where talking about spec sheet and then talking about practical applications is that when Ice Lake came out, there were all sorts of things built in, like security. You've hinted at that a little bit. AI offload, encryption, which kind of falls in the security module. All capabilities that were there aren't going to show up necessarily in a throughput number or whatever, but as you unlock these with intelligent software that can take advantage of these things, now these guys are just rolling this into their stacks, Azure Stack HCI being one, of course, and having more efficient data flow and data path where you do get a little bit of a bump in performance, but it's because of these super low level capabilities in the CPUs that are enabling it, which has got to be, again, pretty cool for you guys to see. I mean, you're talking about software partner interactions. Yeah, like you need those guys to be able to take advantage of this stuff. You provided it, and now we're finally seeing some of these things come to fruition.
Yeah, and Brian, we would not be here if it weren't for all these incredible partners, right, from an ecosystem standpoint. That's, taken a good look at the hardware, saw the value, saw the libraries from a software standpoint, took advantage of them, and now together we're reaping that benefit.
Well, how has that changed? I don't know that it's really changed with Ice Lake, but it feels like that's a bit of an inflection point where there's just more deeper integration. I don't know if I'm reading that right. That's just what it feels like to me. Do you think that there's something fundamentally different here than initial versions of Xeon?
I don't think it's fundamentally different strategies, but I would say it's an evolution of that strategy, of the importance in software optimizations and everything that we do, and just the diversification of workloads, right, that we're seeing in the market more and more, and a realization of the importance of ISV enablement and partner enablement earlier on, and being able to test and optimize. A lot of times the same hardware, right, two different companies, two different workloads, completely different performance stories. So we're relying a lot more on the software optimizations in order to really show the platform and have that shine top to bottom.
Does it seem like Intel's maybe again, another perception thing, that maybe you're doing more of that further down the stack? So obviously you're always tight with Microsoft or whatever, right? Because it's just the nature of the relationship. But as you go down to some of your smaller partners, you hit on libraries. It feels like there's so much more software, so many more tools, so much more available to these guys to say, hey, here's really how you unlock some of this additional capabilities to take advantage of it more fully. Again, I don't know. It may just be that they're talking about it more and that it's always been the same, but it feels like there's some really good momentum.
No, you're spot on. We're definitely going deeper into the stack, right? We're looking at, what are the workloads, what are the services that our customers are designing with, and then enabling, as many of those as possible. And really, I would say Ice Lake was built in for that workload acceleration optimization. We picked workloads, right? We focused on cloud, enterprise, AI, HPC, network, security, and IOTG. I don't think we were that specific and that deep in the past. So I would say, yes, for sure, we're taking a deeper step on getting down to the workload level and getting down to stack and making sure that we're optimizing top to bottom.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of, you've got some neat SKUs, I think, too, in this case. You've got some that are more virtualization-centric with optimized cores. You could take 8380s and put two of those in a traditional 2U or 1U server and get some just amazing, just raw power, which is cool. These guys like to use those Y CPUs that have tunable clocks and throughput. Tell me about the Ys, because I know we've talked about it a little bit before, but this is the first time that I've really internalized it and thought a lot about the capability, because these guys are so excited about it, to be able to say to the customer, you may not know exactly what your workloads are, or they might start as one thing and turn into something else over time as you put more and more and more stuff on this HCI stack. But tell me about why specifically and how that's been great for you guys.
Yeah, I would say it's just another enhancement on understanding that our customers' workloads are fluid and flexible. So I would say Ice Lake really is designed with that flexibility in mind of being able to optimize depending on the workload and being able to accelerate, decelerate to really accommodate for what the workloads are. And it's something that makes Ice Lake unique and something that we're going to continue to build on for next generation and beyond.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be able to fundamentally alter the core count of a CPU is pretty slick. I don't know how many total SKUs there are in the Ice Lake family now, but it feels like there's many, many, many. You ever worry about having too many?
That's a great question. I would say there's always an internal conversation within our business units of the hyper segmentation to be able to meet all the needs of the market. The other side of it, obviously, is just managing inventories and supply channel, and we're making sure that we're helping simplify and not overwhelm our customers. And it's a delicate balance, right? Because our customers do want all these unique features, which means more SKUs, but sometimes they're also, asking for the simplification. So I would say it's a tough balance, and the business unit team is constantly looking at it, right? What is the right number of SKUs? Do we have too little, too many? And how do we make sure we bring as many of the features together to meet the customer need at the end of the day? Great question. I don't think I've figured it out, but I trust we have really smart people in our business unit teams helping figuring out that perfect balance.
Well, even in this world, right? Because you've got this on-prem componentry that needs one set of performance and power consumption profile, and then as you scale the Azure Stack HCI up into Azure public cloud, those hyperscalers need a totally different modality for their power. It's just one of those things of it must be a difficult balance to figure out where to go and where to invest the time and resources. So from an Intel perspective, then you see the growth in HCI, you see the growth in these edge analytics use cases. Where else are you seeing growth that's exciting for you?
I mean, the cloud, right? Yeah, cloud computing in general, right, continues to be a completely hot market. And I think at Intel, we're becoming really in tune of understanding what are the cloud workloads and how do we bring more cloud builders and ISVs on board, and how do we embrace a lot of those workloads and help accelerate them to the point that we just made about software optimization. I think to me, the future is going to be figuring out how to help our cloud customers, regardless of, they're hybrid, they're some on-prem, some private, public. How do we make sure that we're helping influence and support all these customers across the cloud spectrum?
Okay. That makes sense. And when I look at your OEM systems here, I start to think a little bit more about Intel's vertical integration strategy. So maybe talk a little bit about that, about the benefits of the entire solution when you look at things like persistent memory, when you look at Ice Lake, of course, to enable that, when you look at flash capabilities, whether it's Optane, whether it's QLC, TLC, form factors. I mean, we've been talking a ton about ruler lately. Azure is a big proponent of 15 millimeter short ruler, which is exciting too. But now you guys are serious, not that you weren't before about NICs, but more serious about NICs and interconnect. It's starting to feel to me that you're telling a better vertical integration story now than maybe historically. So what obviously that's on purpose, I think, but talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, to me, at the end of the day, we want to provide our customers with solutions, right? And we'll sell a bag of parts if that's what our customers are looking for. But at the end of the day, we do have customers that don't have the in-house capability to be able to do the design work, and we're trying to make it really easy. So I would say our easy button right now are our Intel DSG systems. So think about an Intel data center block, right? Where it comes already with your CPU, with your drives, everything is optimized, everything is ready to go. And it's as easy as an easy button, in my opinion. So we will continue to bring the better together story of the optimizations, because when we have access to the CPU and memory, persistent memory, when we have access to persistent memory and the NIC, we can do a lot more of those optimizations that you mentioned, because we have the hardware, secret sauce per se, to be able to bring better together story out of those components and be able to bring them to our customers to be able to leverage and take advantage of. And like I said, we've even taken it to the step of even putting a whole box together with, an easy button on it. So yes, our goal is to continue to sell solutions into our customers. We'll sell the parts, but we'll also sell everything up until a full box or a solution that's ready to go.
Well, and for these guys too, we don't have it out on the table right now, but the bezels actually got a lot nicer in this generation of servers. So it's the little things sometimes that go a long way. But I think what's interesting too is how you treat your partners. So I just picked up on this anecdotally, talking with Howard here at DataON. If they get a customer order for 2-node cluster, which from an Intel perspective is a teeny tiny order, he can send that in and you guys will fulfill that 2 nodes and get it down here to them so they can do the software build and get it in customers' hands. Like when you talk about being channel friendly, that's super channel friendly, and not making the order be some giant, $250,000 order before you'll go through the effort to fulfill it. It's not something that you guys probably outwardly talk about a lot, but that's a big deal when I talk to guys like this, to help them sell and help them be better partners with their customers.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to make sure that we're not hindering our customers' success. We're not holding them back. So we'll continue to partner with them to understand what they need. And our goal is to ship them what they need as soon as possible, especially to the, you mentioned earlier, the environment that we're in with the supply tightness. I don't think we can afford to wait. So it's on us to continue to partner with folks like DataON to get them what they need when they need it.
Yeah, get them what they need, get them hardware that now they have integrated with Azure Stack HCI on lifecycle management. So they've got their software where they can, within the Windows Admin Center, update things like BIOS and firmware on drives and whatever else is needed to be updated in the system, which gives them a major differentiation in the HCI world, right? Because managing these systems as they get out there, especially if you're running 50 banks and you've got these set up in little STS clusters and all of those, they don't have 50 IT guys on site to be able to stand there, update BIOS, turn over the system, bring it back on. That's got to be done remotely to enable outcomes for the DataON customers. So yeah, I know these guys are pretty excited about what's happened there and the integration with Microsoft be able to make that happen. That's very unique in this space.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and I continue to be amazed by the innovations from DataON. Right, every time we joke about Howard. He's been just a wonderful partner, and they continue to be excited about the technology that Intel brings to them. But honestly, we're equally excited about what they bring out to the end customers, and the testimonies from the end users, right, and enterprises that we continue to hear.
Well, it's certainly working. They've got all these new Ice Lake systems. Like I said, we're in the middle of a performance profile on a little 3-node. We're seeing over 4 million IOPS. It's insane. And I think the performance profile of what's going on with Azure Stack HCI is one of the best kept secrets, which is not so good for Microsoft. Cosmos always gets out on stage and he's like a billion IOPS and whatever, and that's great at scale. But these little teeny systems have tremendous capabilities with Ice Lake, with the 5510s, and we're not even doing anything dramatic. It's not like we're slamming a bunch of Optane in there to get some hero numbers that may not be replicatable. This is real stuff that the customers are going to benefit from. So I know they're excited. I know their customers are excited, and you guys are seemingly doing a fantastic job with this. So we're excited to keep seeing this stuff come into our lab and to be here on site. And appreciate you taking some time out and giving us the update on Intel. This is pretty cool stuff.
No, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about just what DataON is doing. I mean, it considerably, performance increases across all cloud services workloads, lower latency, higher reliance from their customers, and reducing impacts on outages. Like I said, I can go on and on about the testimonies that we continue to hear from enterprises and end customers. So happy to say that they're our partner, and that they've, chosen Intel for their journey. And thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to share, what I'm passionate about and what Intel has been up to.
No, I'm glad to. I mean, this is your slice of the world is not one that we look at a lot. We get into the individual components, and we get, like I said, nerd out with the NAND guys on the drives and all that kind of stuff. But at a certain point, you've got to look at this more holistically from a higher level, and the partnership enablement you guys are doing, like I said, is fantastic. And I think most of the world has no idea that this is going on. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that means it's working when Howard can drop these things off at a customer site and no one really knows that Intel was that involved in the outcome. So pretty cool. So again, thanks for your participation today. Great to have this conversation.
Well, we're glad to have Intel power, the DataON systems, and I think Howard does a good job of blasting us on the websites and making sure customers understand the power behind the system. But at the end of the day, they've put it together, they tweaked it, they've optimized it, and it's their solution to go sell to the world, and we're just happy that they've chosen Intel as their partner.
Awesome. Thanks, Gina.
Thank you.